If I believed that the EU is completely undemocratic or a dictatorship, then I would definitely vote to leave. But if I then found out that almost every piece of EU law gets amended hundreds of times by the European Parliament, whose MEPs we elect directly at the European elections every 5 years, and that they have the power to approve or completely reject any proposal of EU law, I wouldn't. If I was worried about the impact of immigration on the NHS or on social welfare, and I thought that the EU was forcing us to let migrants come here, live off benefits and clog up the NHS, then I might want to leave. But if I then found out that the EU only lets you come here if you either have a job or have comprehensive medical insurance and enough money to not become a welfare burden,
Femi, in theory, you're right. In theory, under European treaties, there are restrictions that can be placed.
and that unlike other EU countries, the UK government chose not to enforce those rules, and that EU migrants make up 5% of our population and 10% of our doctors, I wouldn't want to leave. If I believed that Brexit meant better trade deals and being able to trade with the rest of the world, then I might want to leave. But if I then found out that we already do half of our trade with non-EU countries, if I then found out that in international trade negotiations, the bigger the market that you have to offer, the more leverage you have, and that Brexit means giving up the ability to negotiate on behalf of a market of 500 million people, I wouldn't want to leave. If I believed that being in the EU meant more regulations and higher prices, then I might want to get out. But if I then found out that being in the EU single market means that UK and EU businesses only need to follow a single set of rules to sell across Europe rather than 28 different ones, and that lowers their prices and therefore supermarket prices, I wouldn't want to leave. If I believed that being in the EU made us weaker and less influential, then I'd want to leave. But if I then found out that the UK, despite being one of 28 countries, has roughly 10% of the European Parliament's voting weight, giving us a disproportionately large say over the laws of Europe, which, as I just mentioned, we have a major interest in being our cheapest and closest trading partner, I wouldn't. If I believed that Brexit was a way for the UK to take back control, then I might have voted to leave. But if I then saw that Theresa May has just agreed that for the first 2 years of Brexit, we will be following the rules of the EU, but no longer having a say in the making of those rules, and that even after the transition period,
the UK will need to make a strong commitment that its regulatory standards will remain as high as the EU's. That commitment in practice will mean that UK and EU regulatory standards will remain substantially similar in the future.
leaving us a less sovereign country than other EU members, I would demand that the British people be the ones who decide whether or not the government's deal is good enough for this country.